Hey guys, good evening. It is John C. Morley here, serial entrepreneur. It's great to be with you on Inspirations for Your Life. Today is Thursday, May 1st. Yes, it's a first. It is May 1st, 2025, and welcome to the show. Our master topic for the week, which we started just a few days ago, is this overcoming skepticism. We're on Series 4, Show 18. And the granular topic for tonight is practical tools for moving past skepticism. Series 4, Show 18, episode number 6. So let's dive right in. But before I do, I invite you guys to head on out to the kitchen, get yourself something delicious and yummy, whether it's cold, whether it's hot, whether it's sweet, whether it's tart or not, totally up to you. And definitely check out later on after the show, believemeachieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. Welcome back, everyone, to another fantastic, powerful episode of Inspirations for Your Life podcast. I'm your host, John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, not only a podcast host, but also a podcast coach. And I'm diving into one of the most common but often misunderstood mind blocks. What is it? Skepticism. It's that inner voice that seems to question. Yes, it questions our abilities. It throws shade on your dreams and says, "Are you sure this will work?" But here's the truth about skepticism: isn't it your enemy? No, it's just a signal. It's a sign that you're about to do something unfamiliar or stretch into a territory that's not comfortable. And I've said before, we have to practice getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Tonight, I'm going to be sharing 10 practical tools that can literally jumpstart the way you can use things in your life to immediately shift your mindset, unlock your inner belief, and build unstoppable momentum. Let's step out of doubt and into basically decisive action, something that a lot of people fear, and you shouldn't fear it. But again, whenever something's uncomfortable, people don't necessarily know what to do or why to do something, right? I think that's a huge thing for a lot of people. They don't realize, what it actually is. So let's get right into the first point, shall we? Recognize where skepticism comes from. The first step, ladies and gentlemen, in case you are wondering, the very first step in skepticism actually um, comes from basically knowledge of roots. And this gets inherited not through our DNA, but through experiences, upbringing, and society around us. Maybe someone once told you not to dream too big, or perhaps you failed before an internalized event that happened, right? And that was fear that caused that. Understanding that your skepticism has a source, it helps you depersonalize it. It's not who you are, it's just something you've learned to protect yourself. Once you recognize where the inner resistance comes from, you begin to loosen its grip. Okay. And you'll notice that awareness opens the door to transformation, but it's not going to happen overnight, folks. That's something I want to tell you. It won't happen overnight. And it's because we've got to get comfortable, right? We have to practice getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Number two, name the voice of resistance. Giving your skeptical voice a name is a surprisingly effective psychological tool. When you identify that internal critic like Nervous Ned or Doubtful Dana, you separate yourself from your fear. So I am John. I haven't really given mine a name yet. Maybe, what's a word I could think of? Something like Jekyll John. That's just the Jekyll John talking. I don't know. Just something I was thinking about. So again, you separate yourself from your fear. This shift basically gives you the ability to observe the voice instead of being controlled by it. You can speak back to it, laugh at it, or even challenge its assumptions. Naming makes the voice less intimidating and reminds you that you are not your thoughts. You are the one observing them. I think a lot of people get thrown under the bus like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do in this situation? Realize that it's a thought. Realize that what you focus on, you become. Whatever we actually wherever we put wherever we put our thoughts, basically, that's where our energy is going to flow. Number three, using evidence-based reframing. Our minds are wired to seek patterns and proof. So let's use that to our advantage. Instead of letting doubt run wild, looking at the evidence, what have you already achieved now? What challenges have you already overcome? This is called evidence-based reframing, and it's a technique that replaces irrational fear and facts. Every time you think I can't do this, counter it with a memory of when you did something just as hard or harder. This process starts to reprogram your mind to favor possibility over pessimism. Number four, anchor to your why. When the road gets tough, your why has to become your lighthouse, right? It's a deeper reasoning behind your goals, the personal aspirations, the emotional core that gives your work meaning, your life meaning for that matter. Maybe your why is to support your family. Maybe it's to challenge, to get yourself even more educated, to heal a community, or to prove something to yourself. Whatever it is, guys, just write it down, say it aloud, revisit it often. When skepticism rears its head, because it will, return to your why. It has the power to reignite your drive and remind you that this journey is much bigger than you fear, okay? Because your fear is just something that's there temporarily, can go away if you know how to handle it. Number five, take micro actions to build momentum. Skepticism thrives in an action. That's why micro actions, tiny, doable steps, are your best friend. Don't wait to feel 100% confident. Start with a 5-minute brainstorm, a phone call, or a checklist. These small wins compound over time and tell your brain, we're moving, right? Micro actions lower the stakes, reduce overwhelm feelings, and create a flow that builds belief as you go. Each one is a vote for your future self. Okay, that's important. Number six, guys, surround yourself with the possibility of positive thinkers, possibility people, right? You become like the people you spend time with. If you don't like what you're becoming, you might need to change the people you're hanging around with, their energy. If you're always surrounded by the doubters and the naysayers, which happens to some of us, their skepticism can start to feel like your own. And you get confused like, is this me or is this them? Your body thinks it's you, and then you shut down. But when you choose to engage with people who think in terms of opportunity, vision, and solutions, very important, their mindset lifts you up instead of putting you down. These possibility, quote unquote, thinkers, I call them, help normalize the ambition and support your journey, okay, has instead of questioning it. Your environment can either fuel or drain your beliefs. So let's curate it together carefully. Number seven, use what if reframes the phrase. What if is powerful, but only when used constructively. Too often we say things like, what if I fail? Or what if people laugh? Try flipping the script. What if this leads to something amazing? What if this leads to abundance? What if this leads to me being the best I've ever been? What if this leads to me gaining new skills? What if this leads to me gaining new positive friends? What if? I'm more ready than I thought. Reframing is powerful. What if transforms fear into curiosity. So if we take our fear motive, which we get fearful sometimes, and we change that into how we're seeing it, the lens, we see it as curiosity. Curiosity is a lot different than fear. We like to play with curiosity, right? And we learn from curiosity. It opens mental doors and turns limiting beliefs into imaginative possibilities. Wow, John, that's a lot. And with that, your mind begins to learn how to ask better questions. And with better questions, it leads to better actions. I know. Number 8, guys, visualize the skepticism melting. Visualization isn't just for athletes. It's for anyone and everyone ready to retain their brain. Picture your skepticism as a block of ice, cold, rigid, and unyielding. Now imagine your passion, your purpose as a warm, glowing energy that begins to melt that ice. See it dripping away, leaving space for clarity and belief. Practice this daily. Visualization engages your subconscious and starts to dissolve resistance in ways words alone can't. Number 9, affirmations to rewire belief. Affirmations are like workouts for your mindset. When spoken consistently and confidently, they form new mental habits for us. Try phrases like, I take action even when I'm uncertain. I trust the process, or each step I take builds my confidence even more. Speaking them out loud, writing them down, or recording them can really help. Over time, your brain begins to accept these affirmations as truth. And this is how your brain rewires itself. And guess what? Starts looking for those things instead of those negative things that you've always been finding. See, your brain is very good at patterns. And so if you got a condition to do negative things, then that's what it's going to do. If you got a condition to do positive things, it'll do that too. It doesn't matter what it is. It'll do whatever you tell it. Number 10, celebrate those tiny wins. I've said this before, guys. Every step forward deserves celebration. Too often we focus only on what's left to do and forget to acknowledge what we've done. Celebrate completing a task, showing up despite doubt, or trying something new. These micro celebrations reinforce motivation and signal success to your brain. When you make winning a habit, even in small doses, you naturally build a foundation of trust in yourself. And we said things before, like, the dopamine and things like that. That's not nonsense, guys. That is pure science. And it's been backed by that, really, really backed that. But what I'd like to do right now, and I do this every show, I'm going to give you basically a personal, if you will, story for each one of these points tonight that I shared with you. And it's my hope that it will not only inspire you, it will get your subconscious to want to take that leap. The one that you've been trying to step and take, but for whatever reason, you're not taking it because you're scared. So if we turn your scaredness that you have inside you to curiosity, that's powerful, guys. That's game-changing stuff. That's just not motivating me to become better. That's like 10xing, 100xing who I am right now. That is so, so powerful. So the question is, why don't more people do it? I think the reason more people don't do it, and I'm going to be honest with you, is because it's uncomfortable, and we have to practice getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That's really the name of the game. We have to practice getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Recognize where skepticism comes from. The first step in overcoming skepticism is to acknowledge its roots. Often skepticism is inherited not through our DNA, but through experiences. Okay, and I think that's a point that most people don't understand. That's important. Okay. And I hope that can maybe transform you. Okay. And I know you might say, John, this is really scary. Yeah, it is scary. But, if you get through the scared times, which you can, right, you're going to do something so amazing that you're going to blow the socks off of yourself and everyone else around you. And I think that's something that is not something we just celebrate once. That's something we want to really throw a big party over, right? The fact that we've learned how to create. So the first one I want to talk about is recognizing where skepticism comes from. When I was starting my first business over 32 years ago, I kept hearing a voice in my head whispering, this is going to fail like the last time. I later realized that voice wasn't mine. It was the echo of a teacher who once told me that. Some people just aren't cut out for entrepreneurship. That planted a seed of doubt I didn't know I had carried for years. The moment I recognized that skepticism wasn't me, but a story someone else told me, I began rewriting my own narrative. That shift set me free to take risks. We've all heard the Latin radis malorum est cupiditas, right? Greed is the root of all evil. So that doesn't say that you can't be wealthy. It says don't make wealth the paramount of everything you do. There's nothing wrong with having wealth. It's just don't let it change you as a person. Okay, that's important. Unless it's for the better, like, if you're able to do things and do them anonymously. You don't necessarily want to give away things or give away money and then have your name on it, right? That's not the same. Number 2, name the voice of resistance. I call my skeptical voice, I could basically call it a lot of things. But when we think about who my voice is, what is a great, let's say, verb for J? And, when we think about a great verb for J that is, that's cautious. I think that's a pretty powerful thing, right? So you might realize that you might not have the name right away, and that's perfectly okay that you don't have the name. You don't need to have the name, right? And when the person you've named shows up when you're making a pitch about something or taking a bold leap, you're gonna get scared. Well, one day, just before a major keynote, this voice started in, what if you forget your lines? Instead of spiraling, I smiled and said, thanks for trying to protect me, but I've got this. Giving that voice a name made it less threatening, so I separated myself from it and gave myself permission to move forward anyway. Number 3, evidence-based reframing. Years ago, I launched a community initiative that I was terrified wouldn't catch on. My brain went full-on panic mode until I sat down with a journal and wrote a list and times I'd built something from nothing, testimonies from people I'd helped, and events I'd successfully organized. Seeing the list calmed my nerves. I wasn't starting from zero. I had receipts. That reminder grounded me in fact, not fear. Number 4, anchor to your why. When I began podcasting a very long time ago, there were months I wanted to quit. Not because I didn't like speaking. Downloads were slow. Engagement was minimal. But I kept sticking to it. And I actually put a sticky note on my desk with one sentence. Inspire one life every day. And I live by that motto every day. I need to inspire just one person. That was my why. And it reminded me that even if just one person needed to hear my message, it was truly worth it. That anchor kept me going, and eventually the audience came. Number 5, take micro actions to build momentum. When I decided to write my first article a long time ago, I was completely overwhelmed with 1,500 words, 3,000 words. The idea of writing this was just like, oh, what do I do? So I gave myself one micro action, write one paragraph per day, just one. That tiny step broke the inertia. A week later, I was writing 2, then 5. Before long, the process I wanted was done. In fact, I had more words than I need, and I actually had to get rid of some. Number 6, surround yourself with possibility thinkers. Positive thinkers, but also possibility thinkers. There was a point in my journey where everyone around me was playing it safe. Their skepticism rubbed off on me. And I started shrinking my goals, thinking that, I'm not cut out for that. That's too lofty for me. That changed when I actually joined my first mastermind group with people who thought big. One guy said, why not start a second business? At first, I laughed. Then I did it. That circle normalized growth. And I realized I'd been borrowing fear from the wrong people. I also realized that I wanted to now take what I learned and become a coach. I figured that would be great to do. But I had to dig deep to do that. Number 7, use what-if reframes. Before launching my speaking endeavors, my brain had threw a fit one time. What if no one shows up? I flipped. What if I meet my next big collaborator at one of these events? That reframe changed everything. Instead of dreading the unknown, I started getting excited about the possibilities. That mindset shift made the tour that I was working toward for a mini speaking engagement one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Number 8, visualize the skepticism melting. Every time I sit down to record a new podcast, whether it's live or it's a recording, I take 60 seconds to visualize. I picture a block of ice, my doubt melting away under the heat of purpose. I see my message flowing clearly, reaching the exact people who need it. That mental warm up clears my mind, ignites my energy. It's a ritual I do all the time now, and it works every time. Number 9, affirmations to rewire your belief. Years ago, I started every morning by looking in the mirror and saying, I trust the process. At first, I felt silly. But after 30 days, something shifted. I stopped hesitating. I started saying yes to opportunities faster. That single affirmation slowly rewired my belief system. It didn't just change how I felt, it changed how I acted. I really changed who I was. And that changed because of the actions that I was putting forth. Number 10, the final point, celebrate, 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 guys, your tiny wins. I'll never forget the day I celebrated my first email subscriber. I know that sounds lame, but I was so happy for my first email subscriber. Just one person, but I treat it like I had thousands. I sent myself a little milestone certificate, and I put it on my wall there, my well wall, and I kept going. That joy fueled my consistency. Tiny wins are like kindling for a roaring fire. You can't get a fire going without the kindling. Celebrate them, and the big ones won't be far behind. Now, if you're doing these things and you're finding that it's not working for you, here's why it's not working. Usually what happens is you connect or you're with somebody. When you're with that person, it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? And those are the kinds of people we want to get rid of in our life. Why? I think it's because we don't understand the damage, and maybe they don't understand the damage to what they're doing, but understanding that I think is very, very important. And I think a lot of people just don't realize what that potential is. Okay, they don't realize it. And so how do you deal with that? I think it comes down to the fact that you need to be who you are, right? You need to be who you are. If you are not who you are, you know what happens? Well, life kind of changes. Life kind of changes. And when life changes, like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? And that might sound like something that, I don't know, you're afraid to do. But you've got to realize, ladies and gentlemen, that it's this fear voice that you have to get rid of. And if we can transform fear into curiosity, that's pretty amazing. So how do you get something that's keeping you up all hours of the night or making you worry? Well, first, you have to have a little confidence and belief. You have to detach just a little bit. All right, a lot. And then you have to not be tied to a time frame for an outcome. Maybe you're like, oh, I'll let the universe do it, but by the way, it's got to be by next Friday. The universe doesn't care about next Friday. Thinking about these practical tools that I've given you, thinking about the fact that you can do these things right now in your life, but will you do these things, right? Will you? Will you name your skepticism voice? I don't know. Will you? Will you use what if questions? What if I suddenly get my largest sale by doing this? What if I get my largest sponsor? What if I became front page news because of this event? Right? What if this whole thing I'm doing is just a small stepping stone to a huge production. What if I wake up one morning and I have 1 million followers? What if companies are sending me free products to review? What if people online and in person suddenly get the reason why I do what I do? What if I was able to just change my perspective just a little bit? Not a lot, just a little bit. What if I was to just change 1 or 2 things so I could make a difference? I know I don't want to be like what Einstein said, which is insane. But if we do the same things over and over again, ladies and gentlemen, and we expect different results, you know what? That's insanity. So we've got to be very cognizant with ourselves that we can do so much stuff, but it comes down to a belief. It comes down to our energy. It comes down to consistency. It comes down to getting rid of those negative voices in our head. It comes down to us reframing questions, reframing circumstances, so we can suddenly have a new perspective about life. That's pretty crazy. But it's something you can do every single day in your life. The reason you don't do it, I'll tell you why. You're scared. You are scared. So what are you so scared about? And I think what you're scared about is the fact that what if you fail? Because you've had that in your head so many times, but I just told you to get rid of that, didn't I? But what if I fail, John? But what if you become the greatest success? What if? That what if question makes the difference between something positive and something negative. What if I do this? It's not what I want. That's not the question you should be asking yourself. What if by taking small, consistent actions daily, I'm able to master almost any skill? What if I have to start internally before people will recognize me on the outside? We said this before, that what people see is the outside, but if the inside hasn't totally pushed out to manifest, then you're going to feel like, you're climbing an uphill battle. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. Do check out BelieveMeAchieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, you have more power than you think. So why don't you start using it? Good night, everyone.